Welcome to Conversations. I'm Robin Farr. We've got a varied show for you today. Later on, you'll be meeting Marlene Peterson and Carol Bush. They're with the Senior Support Program of the Tri-Valley. So if you are a senior, or you're caring for a senior, or you know somebody that could benefit from programs, you'll want to watch this because there's so much being offered out there for seniors, and a lot of people don't know about it, so we'll inform you. But first, it's my pleasure to invite Officer Steve DeWarns here. Officer DeWarns is a police officer by day, an internet safety consultant by night, and boy, this is a big issue. Welcome to Conversations.
Thanks for having me.
So you're a policeman doing your thing, but we're finding now major crime going on via the internet. While it's a great tool, it's also something that we need to know about. Tell me what you're talking about in terms of internet safety.
Well, 7 years ago, I got involved in a lot of these undercover operations online, much like the Dateline series To Catch a Predator. I would go online posing as a child, and I made lots of arrests. It was quite an eye-opening experience because within my first case, I got online and went into a chat room posing as a 13-year-old girl. And I had an arrest within 3 minutes of logging in. So through the years of doing those types of cases, I learned that as many of these individuals that are out there, we were making a small impact, and that I felt we could make a greater impact by going out and educating both parents and students, particularly middle school age students, about internet safety, and that's what I do. What
is it that you're warning the parents about, and then I guess the same as the children, getting them on board? What are you doing?
Well, parents, I believe, they went out real quickly and bought computers and internet and kind of gave it to their children thinking, what a great educational tool. And it is a great educational tool. However, we didn't think about the consequences and what a mature world we're now allowing our children to have access to. So now as we realize and we hear about all these different cases that are taking place and these missing kids and these child abductions and sexual assaults, the predators online, we're now realizing, wait a second, maybe there's some things that we need to reel our kids back in and talk to them about before we go and give them the computer. So that's where I step in, and I just point out some of the things that are going on, some of the trends, how predators are having access to children online, what services they use, whether it's chat rooms or social networking sites, how they communicate with kids, how they lure kids into a relationship by deceiving them, building up trust with them, spending lots of time getting to know them over the internet. And if you have a parent that is not necessarily tech savvy or that doesn't pay attention, then that's a lot of time spent without knowledge of what may be happening to their child. So I give them some of the tools that they can go and take a look at their kids' activity, and hopefully having a better relationship and a communication with their children about the internet.
Well, you know, truly, and being a parent of two of my own and two stepchildren, you have to have the computer, you have to have the internet, it has to be in the house. And I'm not real comfortable with the idea that everybody in our household has one in their room. And, you know, I believe homework is being done. The grades certainly are suggesting that. But with the door closed, is that something you would say, bring it out to the family room, folks?
I actually recommend that parents not have internet access in a child's bedroom. Certainly, as your kids get older, you may start allowing them certain freedoms where you can allow that. But early on, middle school, even into high school, I would not advise to that. You don't know what's going on behind closed doors. How could you possibly monitor what you can't see? So that's where I caution parents, and I think that they need to get involved with their kids' online activities. You don't know what your kids might be up to. It's not to say that they're out there doing bad things, but it's what other people might be doing towards them and trying to communicate with them. And remember, they're just children, and so they don't know how to respond and react to a predator's solicitations online. And so that's where I mentioned communication is key. Educating parents and educating kids so they can come together to talk about these issues so that they can have a working knowledge of what it is that the kids are interested in and how can they address problems as they pop up.
So you go around to schools and talking to the PTAs and getting everybody on board with this, because I think a lot of people would be surprised. You know, we grew up telling our children, you know, do not ever take candy from a stranger, you know, do not ever get in a car with a stranger, and it was a simpler life. This, as you said, people can disguise themselves as something that they're not, and a child is not going to see that as a threat.
Right. Certainly, predators have now taken to the internet. I mean, before the internet came along, these individuals ran the risk of going out in public and being seen, trying to abduct a child off the streets. Now, from the safety of their own home, they can go online, they can befriend children, they can get in conversations with kids, build up trust, and form this online relationship. And then you have a willing participant that might go out and actually meet them face to face in person. And you mentioned what we call the danger stranger rule. We taught kids long ago, never talk to strangers, don't get in a car with a stranger. Well, that's the same approach that I have with students. I tell kids, you're now a little bit older, you're now going on the internet, so let's reintroduce that topic. Let's put the danger stranger rule in place with the internet, because anybody that you meet online, I don't care who they say they are, I don't care if they send a picture of themselves, they're strangers and you need to treat them as such.
And you have no idea if who they are representing themselves to be is exactly what they are. It's so different from the old danger stranger where you could see them. And not that that was always, you know, a safe way to do things.
Right.
But you had at least one more thing to go on. You had a visual, and in this case, it's just they seem like they're out there, you know, without a net. These poor kids. Are there signs that a parent should be watching for that might suggest that the child is getting into a danger area here on the internet?
Well, I always tell parents to look for signs and symptoms around their internet use of any type of behavior change. Just like as parents, we look for our kids' behavior changes. We fear that they might get involved with drugs and alcohol, so we look for the signs and the symptoms. Same thing with the internet. Look for behavior changes. If they're in a good mood when they come home from school, and then after getting off the internet, they're in a bad mood or they're distant from the family, take a look at that, because that might be a sign that something isn't right, whether they're being the victim of cyberbullies or an online predator. I work with the Secret Service, and one of the agents at one of the classes that I attended talked about a case where a 13-year-old boy made friends with another person online, this person being an adult. The whole lure was they liked playing games with one another on one of the kids' favorite gaming sites. Through the course of this relationship that went on for about 4 months, this boy ended up giving a lot of personal information about himself. Towards the end of that relationship, the individual started asking him to take nude photographs of himself with the digital camera that the kid said he owned and to email them to him. Well, the kid said, no way, I'd never do something like that. Well, the guy proceeded to tell him, well, I know you live at, and he gave the address, sent him a map and driving directions to his house. He said, if you don't do what I say, I'm going to come to your house and I'm going to harm your family. Well, obviously, this kid was devastated. He wasn't eating dinner. He wasn't doing his homework. Wasn't able to sleep. The parents kept on asking him what's wrong. He just didn't want to talk about it. He was very distant. So the father had, enough knowledge to go into the computer, dig out some emails, and found what was going on, got the local authorities involved. They were able to do a sting operation and arrest this individual. But that right there just shows you the parents had this gut feeling. They saw something wasn't right with the kid. They digged a little bit further, and there was a positive outcome of it.
Wow, that's a great story. I mean, and we know this from all of the stuff we're reading now, that when kids are accosted or taken mentally by an adult, that they don't think in terms of, well, gee, I'll just go tell mom and dad and it'll all be over. They truly do believe what the bad guy is saying, and so they're protecting their own families. What a burden.
And kids don't think that they're going to be a victim. No one thinks they're going to be a victim. And certainly when you're in the safety of your own home, hidden behind a computer screen, you never have the thoughts that I'm going to be a victim here. So it's a way of training ourselves and training our way of thinking, especially kids and parents, about when you go online, you are virtually opening up your front doors and allowing total strangers into your house. How do you address strangers out on the street? Why is it any different when you're on the internet? It should be exactly the same. If you don't know the person, then you shouldn't be putting yourself out there and giving them tons of information. Much like what we're seeing with the trends around these social networking sites such as MySpace.com, where kids will post up what I call a virtual billboard of themselves with photos of themselves, their friends, and give a whole listing of all the things that they're into, what their likes and dislikes are. They fill out online surveys, and they just give a ton of information about themselves, which now we are finding that predators are going to these sites to locate children.
Are there spaces on these sites that say, here, put your address here and any other contact information?
There are forms, there are generic forms that kids can fill out to fill in a MySpace application to have posted on the web. They don't have to fill those things out. They can leave certain fields blank, and then they get into web design. They want to come up with the most fascinating or spectacular looking MySpace page. So they go to other services to help them design their site, and then they'll go through and they will post up questionnaires where you can fill them out and find out a lot of information about this person, and those questionnaires can be forwarded out to all their friends, and then their friends fill them out. And so now we're getting some in-depth insight into each one of these kids, not only that main person but their friends as well.
And through your experience, there are predators out there taking full advantage of that.
Absolutely. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children surveyed over 1,500 kids between the ages of 10 and 17, and 1 out of every 7 children will be solicited by an online predator. Now, there have been some progress around education that kids are not engaging themselves in conversations with complete strangers online like they did 5 years ago. So there has been some progress through education. However, the predators' aggressive solicitations are on the rise. I think that's due in part to the social networking sites. Back 7 years ago when I got started doing these types of cases, individuals would get attracted to a child based off a text. You were fortunate if you found a kid that had the knowledge to go out and scan their picture, put it onto a disk, upload it onto their computer, and send it to this individual. Well, now with the technical age of digital cameras and cell phones, we can have that information out there immediately. So now kids might say no to a predator, but now they're going to the social networking sites where they have all this imagery of their kids and their potential victims, and now they're being drawn to that image, and they're not taking no for an answer.
So you also are talking to kids and obviously, giving them the scare tactic, but you have to let them know what can happen out there. Do they get on board with you, or do they just sort of think, oh, come on, you're ruining my fun?
Well, there's some kids that feel I'm ruining their fun, but I target a middle school age group, particularly 5th and 6th grade, but I've taught it up to 8th grade. I don't currently go into high school. It's really difficult to reach kids once they've been immersed in this for so long to reel them back in. My target audience is kids that are just getting involved with the internet and educating them about some of the things that I've learned. I go over 5 safety tips, and I back up each safety tip with real-life stories and cases that I've been involved with. And every time the audience reaction is the same. You can see the expressions, you hear the comments, my gosh, I didn't think of that. I had no idea. When I posted that information, I thought only my friend could see that information.
Well, it's probably thinking, why would anybody else want to look at this? But they're not thinking about the opportunist out there who is saying, this is just the perfect opportunity for me to get in and get to this kid.
Absolutely.
Real quickly, we're almost out of time, but when a child goes missing, I notice they're often now going to their social website to find out what is it that they're doing there. They're just looking at the log of where they've been online.
For the police departments?
Yeah.
Police officers will go to a child's email account or a MySpace account. If a child goes missing and a parent has their sign-in information, or law enforcement, we have a contact with MySpace. MySpace is working close with law enforcement, that we can get information about the person to see where they've been going. It's not that we want to read what they've been talking to their friends about. It's so we can help to locate that child, because time is of the essence to get a child back when they go missing.
Oh, yeah, when they go missing, that's
information.
Yeah, that is the #1 concern, isn't it? So Officer DeWarns is available to speak to your school. If you want to get in touch with him, www.internetchildsafety.net. Couldn't be any easier. Thank you, Steve, so much for coming in. Important information, and I hope parents are listening.
Great.
Don't go away. We'll be right back with more conversations.